till Celeste joins, and our special guest is former Sheriff Mark Lamb.
Yes.
Joining us in studio. Sheriff, as you have analyzed this case, have you made a determination yourself? Do you come down on a burglary gone wrong or a kidnapping?
Well, originally I was dubious of the letters, the ransom letters. So the kidnapping, felt a little weird. It's not a cartel. It doesn't follow that suit. The cartel doesn't typically kidnap American citizens. They kidnap fellow cartel people, rivals. And so those didn't fit well. And then when we saw the video, it felt like it just didn't feel that professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, the guy who's reaching for the leaves to cover the camera, all that.
Yeah, and one of my questions is, and we were just talking about this in the back room, is you see the video when he's trying to cover up the camera when he first comes there, but then somewhere he takes the camera. So did he take it after he brought her out of the house? We see the blood on the front porch. Did something go wrong? And did he take the camera at that point? Because up until that point, he hadn't taken the camera. He was trying to use bushes to cover it up.
Right.
And so now you start to say, well, did something go wrong? And did they then have to remove whatever evidence they could? Which would also explain the non-proof of life and how quiet this case has gone.
What are your thoughts on, there has been a lot of criticism on how the authorities have handled the investigation. Should they have opened it back up to the family or not initially before the FBI popped in? It was so much back and forth.
We're in a 24/7 day and age where everybody's monitoring this case. And so it's really easy to armchair quarterback it and say, look, they did this wrong or they did that wrong or they could have done this better. I've kind of refused to go down that road.
Good, yeah.
I think that when you show up, it is not illegal for an adult to go missing. So initially, you're going to treat this case as, hey, maybe she's at the casino, or maybe she's not home. And then you see some evidence that might lead that there might be foul play. And you always want to hold the scene as long as you can. But I don't have all the details. So for me to question whether or not why they released the scene back to the mom, maybe there was, some reasons for that, or to the family, I mean.
Yeah.
So I don't want to sit and question it because I don't have all the facts on it. But, in hindsight, you can say, yeah, it would have been nice to keep that house much longer.
I just wonder if you can, as you go back in your memory banks, if you have any cases of missing persons that can sort of inform how you would proceed in a case like this. And just in terms of, the amount of tips that come in on a case like this, how do you prioritize 20,000 tips?
It's a tremendous amount of tips, and we've had cases where we've gotten a lot of tips, not this many tips. But right when I became sheriff, and I talked about this case I do a true crime channel now at Lamb Investigations, but I talked about this case. I came into office in 2017. A month later, at the end of January, we had a case where somebody found a vehicle with blood around it in the desert down at the south end of the county, and somebody was missing. And we started putting it together. We actually arrested a guy based on social media, his searches online. We looked at, he had actually created a fake profile and catfished this guy out. He worked as a corrections officer. We looked for the body for 4 days, and it was 4 days later that in the helicopter, unfortunately, and I'm not trying to, hopefully this isn't the case with this case, but we found his body charred and left in the desert. We did a DNA test, and it was indeed him. That guy now is sitting on life in prison without parole, and so it is that we've had these types of cases. Fortunately, it didn't go as long, and it didn't come out the way we wanted it to. We would have loved to have found him alive, but we didn't. And
you bring up an interesting point, though, when you said he did something on social media, and there's been a lot of chatter. Obviously, we live in a day and an age where technology is, at our fingertips, and they say that, in fact, could be the key to solving what's going on with Nancy Guthrie.
I think ultimately that will break the case. You'll find these search engines, but you've got to find what channel to go down, what path to go down. Maybe you get that one investigative lead, and then when you start to crack into the digital evidence at their homes, that's when this case will start to unfold. You got those people that were detained. Now, when you get those search warrants are going to be very limited because the judge has very little to work off of. So I imagine the scope was very limited on those houses where they detained those folks. And so maybe they didn't have the ability to take the digital evidence from the home. But digital evidence, I think, will ultimately be what cracks this case.
Hey,
and maybe the DNA.
Daphne, this is a great thing about this streaming show. People comment on YouTube, and she said they said the family was cleared. The video, and then later or at one point they said that everybody was still a suspect, but they have cleared the family. How does the process work when you start with the close circle, widen out, and start clearing people?
Well, over 90% of these cases are done by somebody who's very familiar with the family or even family members themselves. And I know it hurts feelings, but this is how you have to treat that case. And my guess is they zeroed in on the family members and did what they probably had to do. You're going to look at all of their social media. You're going to get dump their phones, see who they were chatting with, what IP towers, what cell towers they were bouncing off of, cell phone pings.
Interesting.
These are all things that you're going to look into. And I would imagine these are part of what they used to clear the family. I've heard that there was a polygraph maybe that was done to clear the family. You're never, ever truly cleared until you find who did it. And so what they've basically said is they don't have any evidence. This is how I viewed it and heard it as. You don't have enough evidence to continue to look at them as suspects, but that doesn't mean that something may not pop up down the road.